I've been painting like this for about 35 years. And it feels like only now what I'm painting is being received. Before it was like not so obvious. The consciousness wasn't so opened. It was like, I'm not sure what that is, but now people are very open to it. Yeah. And for me, those paintings are like prayers, because it's the same process to be able to push away everything that you know, everything that you think you are. So your ego gets out of the way, and then you get to be so present, perfectly present in the moment, and then the artwork to start to happen.
Hello, beautiful being. Today I have the pleasure of being able to explore and communicate and converse and delve deep into the concept of prayer, Reiki, healing energies, using art in not only in expression, but the ability to heal ourselves. And I get to do this with Alexandra Cabri, who is a former Warhol pop artist turned healer. And spending a little bit of time with her and picking her brain, I've really been able to explore beautiful tidbit information that I feel many people are inquisitive of and would also like to explore. And so I thought this would be a beautiful opportunity to host her onto the podcast and to just pick her brain and share the beautiful gems of information that she has to share with the community. So please welcome Alexandra Cabri.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's such a subject dear to my heart. It's my life. Yeah, this is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. And I know that the viewers are going to get a lot of really great information from this particular interview. So I'm really excited to delve deep to share all the wisdom that you've acquired over time. Something that I would like to open the door with is art, because we have a really beautiful display of your personal art in the background, as well as your jewelry.
Thank you. Nefertiti, and some deities like Hathor. This is the work that I do. I've been painting like this for about 35 years. And it feels like only now what I'm painting is being received. Before it was like not so obvious. The consciousness wasn't so opened. So it was like, I'm not sure what that is, but now people are very open to it. Yeah. And for me, those paintings are like prayers, because it's the same process to be able to push away everything that you know, everything that you think you are. Your ego gets out of the way, and then you get to be so present, perfectly present in the moment, and then the artwork to start to happen. And it feels, I joke often that I am a cultural refugee from France. So what I mean by that is that I felt the weight of the culture is just too overwhelming and too limiting in France or Europe. And it feels like when I came to America, there was this welcome, like, oh, you're an artist, beautiful, what do you do? And the curiosity, almost like childlike interest, that allowed me to loosen up and to say, maybe I can dare to say, to paint things that I know are not that easy to receive.
Yeah, I remember from former conversations with you, or former conversation in particular, that you were indicating that your art, almost as though you were using it as a divinational tool, it started to take on a personality and expression. And when you held space with that particular art piece, that art piece could tell you what it wanted to be, communicate with you, and even participate with you in facilitating your healing journey. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's really accurate. It took me actually a while to understand the process and to accept it, as I thought at the time channeling was a word I wouldn't dare to use. I felt like it was a bit like pompous, or what am I, special person channeling? But now, I completely understood it, because it will be down to using my limbic system, my sensory system, to actually really listen to what this blank canvas wanted me to do on. And it's like, to the point where it almost feels like where people say, "Oh, that's very difficult with that." It's not, because it just feels from my end that I'm just moving color around, and I'm just kind of being intuitively instructed of how to, what to move, what color, where, and how. So it seems simplistic, but it is that way. It really is.
Yeah, we hear of people who do free writing to channel, allow themselves to be open with a pen and paper, and use that as a device or a tool to allow them to access maybe the space to receive information channeling. And it sounds like you're doing that through your art. We've heard of, or at least I have heard of, numerous artists in terms of sculpture who would do the same thing, who would say, well, this block of wood or block of marble is telling me what it wants to be, rather than me imprinting or creating what I want it to be. And so it's magnificent to hear that this can be a form of channeling in its own.
And I worked for many years in a rehab center doing art therapy, and I saw that magic happen with people. There was a lot of athletes, so not necessarily people who would be who have that already happening in their life. Like the people would even say, "I don't like art." And I was, okay, it's not about art. It's just about you sitting there, being there, having the space, and having someone who welcomes you, invite you to just give it a try. And it's beautiful, because it's the same process, whether it's me or somebody who hasn't even touched Crayola before, to see that after a couple of hours, they discover that out of themselves, they don't know how that happened, but they actually have created an art piece.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
the discovery of what just could possibly come out of them. It was really moving.
I think it's interesting, because I will hear, and have heard a lot of friends or, people in discussions with, say to themselves, well, I'm not creative, and I always have an instant rebuttal to that. And that rebuttal is, yes, you are. You're creative every single day, and you don't realize it. You're creative in your manifestations and the decisions that you make, even in sitting with your intuition and understanding yourself. You're creative in how you are using your mind to think about the next steps, or how you're going to plan your day, or how you're going to plan something that takes a specific skill set. And what I like to remind them is, you are born creative. Look at our children's play with Legos, building blocks, crowns, coloring books. We are born creative beings, and we have an array of mediums to express ourselves in. And when you take on a limiting belief that you are not creative, you're inhibiting the soul's ability to express and desire to express. And you might try being creative at, say, oil paints, and that might not be your medium. But just because you cannot express or choose not to express yourself in that particular medium does not mean that there's not a medium out there for you that really allows for the soul's expression. For me, art, like playing with all these different techniques and modalities, allows you to better learn you and to experience all the things that there are to experience before you find the one, right? That really allows you to keep going deep within yourself. Would you find that to be somewhat accurate?
Absolutely. And let's take, for instance, the example of somebody who would say that, oh, I'm not creative, and I can't even touch that. So what I usually challenge people with is the thought of saying, you have an imagination. There's one of the three brains mode: thinking, awareness, or imagination. It usually kicks it at night when we sleep, right? But if you think of it, like the use people make daily of their imagination is unfortunately negative. So worry is nothing else but a misuse of your imagination. So you're creating that thought, or you're validating that thought that came out of you, and then so imagine that now you can be more present to your capacity to imagine and try to redirect. And if it's just at least to catch yourself going into this headspace and worried about things that haven't even happened and it probably won't happen, that's imagination. So when I say that, mention that to people, it's almost like they're just like take that more seriously, and it's a challenge for them to say, now can you actually use your imagination to create and be the creator of your next thought, your next impulse, and also the idea of everybody has a sacred space, and the list of people, people who call themselves this way, I usually ask them, what did you used to do when you were a little child? And that make you feel like the time just stopped. There's no care in the world. You get lost in it. And some people would be, everybody actually will always be able to tell you, oh, I used to just be hanging out in nature and then tell myself story, or it was playing with the ball. But it's all a play, it's all a discovery, and it's all a space that we choose, we're naturally wired to actually try to become master at, and become a master at throwing the ball or cooking cookies and things like that. I'm French, so of course I'm going to use the analogy of cooking, but yeah, there are people whose sacred space is in the kitchen. And express themselves, but if you think of it also, put their heart in, put all their generosity, like creating something, thinking also about the others. It's a very unique and very personal thing to do, but at the same time, if you think of it, or it's also a way of sharing and being connected with people. Whether you create food, you're going to eat with somebody. If you create an image, you always have in mind that you're going to show it to somebody, and that there's always an invitation of the outside. It's coming from inside, but it's also a way to connect you from to others. It's a little weird because it felt to me that that was natural, that was obvious. And my ego thought for many years at school, it was like, okay, being an artist is like obvious. So it's got to be more complicated than that. What else must I be? You know, oh, I want to be a doctor, I'll be this and that. And you look, introspect and try out different things. And then one day you find yourself saying, no, I was trying to escape it, but no, I'm an artist. I know your sacred space would be photography, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You're very visual, right?
Yeah, very visual. You know, you mentioned something as a child, where did you go, that you would just lose sense of time? And for me, it was in the woods. I would often walk in the woods by myself with my dogs, and I would always follow a stream and play jumping rocks through the streams. And then I would color in coloring books. And I would sit at the kitchen table during a summer rain, and, you know, the windows would be open and the breeze is coming in and you can hear the thunderstorms rolling in. I grew up on the East Coast where there's actual summer storms, and the thunderstorms would be rolling in, and I would get lost for hours with the coloring book. And as I got older, I became a model because I wanted to become a photographer. And I thought that I had, for some reason, to like be on one side of the camera, and I was being pushed in that direction. So I went with it, but it was with the desire to become a photographer. And what I can say about my life as a professional fashion photographer, who also works in, you know, I work in fine art of photography for myself, but I was paid as a fashion photographer, is that photography forced me to recognize that there are numerous representations of a truth. So there are numerous perspectives. So whether I was shooting from the left, from the right, wherever the light was hitting, 360 degrees, that image or person took on a different persona or a different look based on the perspective that I was shooting from and how the light was affecting the subject at the time. I started having, through my photography, I started experiencing awakenings, little small pivots of perspective and perception, and was able to recognize that art is a huge catalyst for expanding one's own perception so they can tap into the greater consciousness.
That's really beautiful, because in feeling when I work with clients that might not be artistic, there's such a great emphasis about perspective. Life is all about perspective, basically. And your wisdom is showing through in your choices of perspective. You might have a problem, and then we have a problem, you're stuck, and people can see that, like mulling over, being stuck, marinating in something negative. There's no other way out than to actually choose try a new perspective. And you can find that with one issue, you can actually find an endless stream of different kind of perspective. Every day you might find something else about the issue that you're dealing with. And that's being an artist. That's being always looking for something new, something, okay, this is the obvious, because once you've seen something, you're like, well, okay, that is it. Now I'm just setting, this is the way that image is going to go. Well, when you have, and that's what I also love photography. I do a lot of photography as well, but not to the level that you're doing it. But it's this beautiful quest for, wait, but can it be different? And yeah, you change the angle, or the subjects change a little, and fold, and trying to get to kind of like a perfection, trying to go into your groove and find something that's where you're like, this is almost perfect. And when I paint, there's moments where I can go one direction, or I can go another direction, or many different. And that's sometimes the challenge of being an artist. And that's also sometimes what scares people, is that to make that choice. Why would I feel space this way or that way? And so now we have a technique that's very common. It's a reproduction technique. It's called G-clay, where it's a digital reproduction of an image on a canvas. And so I've been thinking about it for a long time, but now I'm actually doing it, actually with this one on top, where I will stop at some point and I take a picture, and then I continue the painting. But then I have that picture at the earliest stage, and I make a G-clay out of it, put it back in the canvas, and then take it in another direction. And I can do this as much as I want. So I have the same basis of the same starting point of an image, but then I have the freedom to say, well, this is one possibility, another possibility, another possibility. So that frees the mind so much. And if you do this, apply this to any thought patterns that come through your head, you're not stuck. It starts to really liberate and unstuck yourself from, well, I'm not attached. I don't have to be attached to the way that thought is just coming to me. What else could I be thinking about it? And that's art.
Did you feel?
So we're all artists.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're all artists, and it's a fallacy to believe otherwise. It's just, we all have the capability of creativity, and we use it on a daily basis, and you don't even know that you're using it. So being able to channel it through a medium that appeals to you, I think, is such an incredible gift. And I'm curious if you got to express yourself in the similar fashion in which you're doing now, when you were a pop-up artist working with the Warhol factory.
I say I was a child of the pop art. When, with being a child comes also a certain aspect of conditioning, being receiving influence, being programmed to. So culturally, it's a conditioning. Cultural conditioning is an important thing. So I felt like at the time I didn't realize that, but at the time I felt okay. I really get it. I understand the part movement is talking so loud to me because almost I was born as an artist in that time. But then came the question, the pop art is already a movement that has been blooming, filling up museums. To me, the problem was like, what's next? What is the next art movement that I should be part of? And it became more about searching rather than confirming that I was an artist. Do you see what I mean? Like it's if I can, let's say, if I can do a proper landscape in the in sorry in if I have I do a proper landscape in the old-fashioned way of the masters, for instance, well, that's great. But me, I'm more of a researcher. I'm more of an artist that it's like you're either a composer or you're a brilliant artist interpreter. So I wasn't interested in being an interpreter of art. I was more into the research. And the research became very personal. It was like, okay, well, it brings it back to me. What do I have to say? I can't wait for the movement, the new movement to appear. Then I'm just a follower. You know, it's like an imitation, if you will. So that was not interesting to me, and I didn't have the answer. So that's why I had to feed two kids to feed. So I went to do commercial art for 15 years, kind of got lost, maybe hiding in it a little bit, and then eventually one day I got bored with it, and that's when I decided to try the only medium that I've never touched in schools, which was oil painting. No, that's not for me. Yeah, I've done everything from photography, also, for instance, illustration, creating fonts, in this one. And then later I realized is that I had never had an oil painting class with a teacher. So it means that I was like untouched by any influence of a teacher. And that's the story of my life. Same thing for the healing. Everything that I do well, it's self-taught. So the question was, what do I have to say? What do I have to say? And it started with a lot of close-ups of folds of fabric, because like you, I spent a lot of time working with photographer and doing wardrobes or doing setting up for catalog and things like that. So spending hours and looking at, is that the perfect fold? And that became very, very meditative for me, very healing. Yeah, absolutely. And also, it's this folds of fabric. I used to call them the abstracts. It was kind of a joke because it was very um, uh, very representative. You could see that it was not abstract at all, very realistic, but at the same time, it was all about making a composition where people, the first look, maybe, what am I looking at? And then is there a person underneath this fold of fabric? Is there a woman? And I did this for almost 10 years. It was a subject that I picked immediately. It felt comfortable. And then when I came to the States, I felt invited to actually kind of pull the curtains a little and tell a story, like having a person showing up, a bit more of a presence. And almost like in a theater, you wait in the room, and then you look at material, you look at a big drape of fabric, and then eventually when it's time, then the curtain open up, and then you have the play. So it feels now that I am really telling stories.
Beautiful. And so I know that your art was and still is a big part of your healing journey, allowing you to segue into a more spiritual life and one of learning Reiki and eventually becoming a sophologist and moving into the Theosophical Church of Antoinist. Can you delve into that a little bit more?
Yeah. I was a rebel, and I had just like I was brought up Protestant, but not really practicing. But I have something for me is that I was as a child, I was very authentic. So I just said no, I don't get it. I don't understand what it is. Thank you very much. I won't do my confirmation, but I'm interested in the subject. I understand it's important, but this is not giving me any answers. So, being going into my young adult life as an atheist, one day something happened. It was really like me being pushed gently and opening up to the spiritual world, and it happens through the physical body, through health. And in France, we use a lot of medication. It's just ridiculous amount of antibiotics. So you have children that are sick that are already allergic to antibiotics. And so when I discovered the healing center, the Jorei Japanese healing center, it was like entering a new stratosphere, and I was immediately drawn to it. I do believe that I have past lives in Japanese, so I think that probably helped create a bond. But things has happened magically through illness of one of my son, where we actually were able to clear up in 4 days meningitis. It had all the symptoms. I knew about it, and then I recognized them. But I called the dojo, and I said, my son is sick, and said, don't worry, we'll come and work on him. And there was the idea that whether it is physical or circumstantial or emotional, whenever there's a breakdown, it's always considered an elimination of toxins. So I understood the concept, and I was waiting for maybe throwing up or hives or something like how those toxins are going to come out. And I cut myself accidentally when this man came to work on my son. And as I was putting my band-aid, he said, stop me and say, no, you just wait for the toxin. If you cut yourself, then your toxins are coming out. And when you wait till the blood stops, then you clean up, then you put a band-aid. Right. And I thought, why am I cutting myself in the middle of a conversation? And a day and a half later, my son, it was a very bad mood because he had a lot of fever and pain. And he complained, and he went like this and said, oh my God, it stinks. It says it stinks. It smells so bad. There's nothing smelling bad. He pinched his nose and then let it go. And then blood came out of the nose. So he had a very big nosebleed. And that made sense. That was the magic of what happened a day and a half ago, is that I remember the words of the man, which was, let it go. Toxins are coming out. When it stops, you clean up, and then you're good. And otherwise, I would have done just the opposite, what was told, like, just go put the cotton, and I would have rushed to the hospital and say, I've killed my son. So that was such a big lesson. And I was like, I'm never going to touch medication again. And that was, yeah. So I spent more time and got initiated this practice. And then in the same group of friends, we're all seekers, basically. Someone in the community found this theosophical temple that looked very old-fashioned, very Protestant, actually, no fluff, no little angels, no gold, and just one big sentence in this very bare, quiet temple, a big sentence that says that the true love is the one you have for your enemies. And I would just go and sit there from my rebellious mind being terrorized by my mom, like I know who the enemy is. And I looked at that sentence and I thought, I'm going to work toward that. Maybe in another life I will get there, but it's a direction. And basically, I became very familiar. I started to be invited to actually give some time over there, and that's when I learned to just stand in silence. So it was a very big introduction to meditation. And all we were doing really was being able to go into the temple if you had any problem, and then you will ask to have somebody praying for you. So you'll go into the little room, and there would just be the picture of the Father, and underneath another sentence that said anybody who gets paid for their prayers is out of the law of God, or something like that. So it's all about generosity and giving and offering everything. And the only thing that the head of the temple, of that temple, asked me, she says, all we ask you to do is to be authentic. And that was the only teaching I really needed. That was the fundamental, basic instruction that I should get. So they allow me to be at service really fast. The fact of letting somebody into a little room with you, and then you ask them, what is your problem? What do you need help with? And have a person sharing their very profound issues and pain. It's very intimate. And you're here, and all you have to do is to just forget yourself. You go out of the room, being in presence, trusting that there is a source, and you are the connection between that person's pain and the source. And it's all about standing and watching and being so focused that at one point you start to really feel a shift in an energy, and you feel like what we would call in French, we would say the prayer has passed, means that it's got sent to the source. And the fundamental teaching, theosophical teaching, is that God is within you. So it gives you full responsibility, doesn't it? And the instruction also for the people who would come and be prayed with is that when they leave the temple, their job is to not doubt, because otherwise you kill the prayer. So that was that. It's a challenge, because the mind is so used to it. No, I'm going to do my little round. My little hypnotherapy is going to work. So self-hypnosis is also part of that, because it allows you to say whatever is really going inside of you, the conversations, the belief system, the reaction that you have, you're the boss of it.
Yeah.
You're the commander.
You're the creator.
You're the one who can pull self-love or love for our others, like as in love your enemies, or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And are you ready?
Yeah. And this is where being creative comes back into the picture. So you are a creator of your own reality. You are an architect of your own reality. Something interesting that you said regarding prayer is that, you go into a space where you're having other people pray with you and for you, and the prayer is released, and your responsibility is to not doubt it, which we also see in manifestation. I'm seeing clarity regarding energy, and the energy is believing that you will receive, because in manifestation, you've crippled the energetic call and response when you don't believe that you're going to receive it, that you have doubt, right? And so I'm hearing this similar in the art of prayer.
Yeah. Trust is, for me, I don't know for you, I really believe that trust is the big lesson that I came here to master. And you only get to become a master when you've gone through enough opportunity for you to lose or to just to run away from trust and curl up in a ball and worry. So I love this time right now. I mean, I know a world looks like but openness of consciousness, the way people, I have clients that I've followed for like, 10, 15 years. And I can see the blossoming of their consciousness. And I think this is really where it's also something that we can now hear. 50 years ago, that was really difficult at the time where the Father Antoine was a healer. But now it becomes completely possible. I know for a fact that anyone on that planet can wake up to the fact that they are the God within, that they are the commanders, they are calling the shots. So all we have to do really is to kind of dismantle the ancestral, not just us, not just our childhood, but the 17 generations of emotional cell memory we have in our DNA. We clear up the ancestors as well, and we're opening up this road, or this field. It's a beautiful time. But when you center yourself, you are generous enough with yourself to give yourself time for meditation daily, and you use it at the moment where you're most challenged. You go into your meditation, and this is finding your center, and then you become like a rod, like an antenna, and that's when you download all the information that you need at that moment. The truth comes through, because the lie of the ego mind is put to rest. The soul is going to be talking to you in a very empowering way, because the soul has no problem. The soul has no conflict. The ego is. Or everybody who will go and say, oh, I'm not an artist, I'll block it, I can't do this. It's just your ego talking. So why don't you just center, calm your mind, calm your thoughts, and then see if there's another answer in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think through curiosity and the ability to experiment and play, is one of the greatest ways to combat the limiting belief systems that the ego uses in its many attempts to protect us from things that hurt. And so through curiosity, experiment, and play is where we give ourselves freedom and permission and are able to separate ourselves from the ego to explore our options and to show and prove to ourselves and to our ego that there are many different opportunities for us, that it's not as limited as it looks or as the ego would want us to believe, and that there's choices, and that there's different perspectives that we can see and experience and play from, and come from a place of creativity. And that ultimately over time allows us to start to shift our perspective to realize that we truly are architects in the design of our own realities. And that when we can learn to trust and surrender, which is very difficult. And I believe that it's one of the things that I'm here to work on as well. But through trust in the art of surrender, we begin to co-create with the universe. So we're no longer, these architects of our reality working and conspiring solo, but now we're energetically immersed in co-creating with the universe. It is an incredibly beautiful place to be. And for me, that's a place where I feel extremely tapped into source. It's just such an incredible feeling to recognize in that moment how connected you are to everything and everyone around you, and that the universe is truly conspiring to benefit you. It's an incredible place to be.
Yeah. And it's two words that you said that I really love. First is the word curiosity and the word architect. if you just work instead of being the toy of the autopilot, but you really actually take ownership of the way your brain works, and you are clear about the map. Okay, I've got thinking possibility, I got awareness, and then I have imagination. So the imagination, this is what kids do, right? This is exactly the playground of children. That's how they exist, actually. So if you open up your curiosity and allow your brain to go in imagination mode, there's no stopping you. This is how you access the field of possibilities. But what I like about the work architect that you were using is that an architect has there's a lot of knowledge. So you have to have the engineer brain that works with all the knowledge that it acquired. And so it's not to dismiss any, and then so therefore the thinking brain is useful, right? But an architect is also a creator. The beauty of architecture is that it comes up with some new concepts. I'm actually not a close friend, but actually a friend of Frank Gehry, and I had the privilege to shot him in his and we had a fantastic moment in his studio, and this man is like you see like a 85 years old man, almost 90 years old man that has at the peak of his career keep on like popping up ideas, stimulating hundreds of people that he works with, and he'll never stop, because why would he? So there's no retirement for artists. And I see also as a teacher, art teacher, I teach at Brentwood Art Center, and there's a lot of people that are retired, and what do? They now make time for art. Now they And it's moving to see that there are people that come to the class and say, well, but now they're daring because, why not? I can try that. And so they come and say, I don't know how to draw, I don't know. And then you find them, weeks later, and they are like loving their artwork, and it's beautiful. So in life, you are the architect. There's a certain amount of things and knowledge you need to acquire. Like, how does the body work? Don't trust, don't rely just on the doctors. Do your own research. Listen to your body. Know what's good. Know what's your nutrition. It's your job basically to keep your physical self healthy, and then use the other part of your existence. We're here not to prove anything. We're here to experience. What is a greater experience than art? I don't care. Seeing, try to move. Try this medium. Try that medium, and blossom and expand.
And there's so many classes that an individual can take to explore and learn themselves. You go approach life like you're going to an ice cream shop. You have all these different mediums. You can go into an oil painting or a ceramic class, or, you go make rustic pottery in someone's backyard. Like, there's all these beautiful experiences and opportunities that we have access to, that is so empowering for you to get to learn who you are, what makes you resonate, what turns you on, what gets the juices flowing and has you entering into a state of flow or is cathartic. There's so much to learn about ourselves. And what's amazing is how many people are walking around the planet not knowing truly like what turns them on, what resonates, what's a vibratory match, what curiosities they have, that for some reason
Yeah.
they get into the workforce and they shut it all down, and then, like you said, they wait till they get to retirement to explore that side of themselves.
And they've absorbed their like talking about who's using this term? I think it's Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, biology, I believe, who using this term of from 0 to 7, you're in
Yes.
hypnotic mode, right?
Yeah.
So you
You're in
absorb, you don't
theta.
even know that you're absorbing. But also, there's an exercise that I created. Know the limit of your imagination. Know your conditioning. For instance, a very simple question. Come up with a desire that you've never, ever thought of before. Not when you were little, not last week, not 100 times, never, ever. And if you do this, it's really funny. It's really worth it, because when I did it the first time, I saw that when I asked myself the question, what is it that you would create as a desire that you never ever came across your mind? And it was like the stop. Literally, your mind, you think your mind is just grasping the world and has no limits. Like, on my mind, I can go anywhere. Maybe I want to go to Mars, or I want to, it. But actually, when you ask that question, you're stuck, and you're like, uh, uh, and that's the beautiful letting go. It's a good exercise to letting go and being in touch with the part of you that channels, because then suddenly you have to just stop and be in silence. And out of that silence, a thought comes. And it could be ridiculous. Could be ridiculous. Doesn't matter. It's just that that's the new thing. You just allowed something completely new to enter your space. And at the same time, you saw, yeah, I have my limit. It's like there's a picket fence. So every time you do this, you push the limit of your picket fence, and your territory becomes much broader. There's a method that I've come up with, and I'm calling the shift method, and it's using this three brains mode. When anybody has an upset, there's an emotion. If you ask the emotion to speak, the complaint, I call it a complaint, because I want to bring us back into maybe like an 8-year-old, not an adult with sophisticated analytical mind, but you feel the feeling, and then you ask yourself, what do I complain about? And it has to be very childlike. So maybe it's like, I'll never make it happen. I'm not good enough. I'll never make it happen. So now you're very, very clear. You're clear what your ego mind has to say. You have your emotion, your words are connected, and that's one way to be, right? So then immediately you take a pause. Now you go switch your awareness mode. And then I ask the question, imagine. So I invite the person to imagine, say, imagine that that issue is, you don't know how, you don't know when, but that issue is completely resolved. Completely resolved. So the person goes into the imagination. Just stay there for a second, and then immediately there's a shift. You can see the face changing, you see the demeanor, the body giving out, and then I'll ask, what are you feeling? And then what the feeling will be described. Maybe I feel free. And then they say, what do you say about yourself or about life when you feel this way? And it will be maybe, I'm enthusiastic, I'm excited, I'm liberated. And it might not, like, the words might not be the absolute logical opposite of your complaint, but it's like you get out of this predicament and you pull yourself out of that into a space where there's no pain. Now you know what you really feel like. Now you know what your soul is yearning for. You know what your soul is offering you. It's offering you another road. So now you are still you. You can choose to go back and continue to experience this emotion and believing it and stigmatize it with the word, or you can open yourself up, liberate yourself, and say, I can actually stretch this way. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. Beautiful thing. the shift is immediate. So when people, and it's the simplest thing, you should teach this at school. Kids should know that, so we have not been trained this way. We have not been invited to experience life that way, but it's okay. Oh, now we know, so we can do. So very, very simple exercise like that makes a world of difference.
Piggybacking on the concept of simple exercises to allow people to step into their power. You'd mentioned a couple times meditation. Meditation is something that I work on with my clients. And a lot of clients will have problems in the beginning with the concept of meditation. And there's a lot of misleading information, I believe, online where people are told doing dishes or cleaning the house is meditative. And it's not. It's very different. It's cathartic and maybe allows you to enter a state of flow where you can quiet the mind. But there is something to be said about the art of meditation. And I'm wondering with your clients, if you have any suggestions that you tend to lend to them in terms of how to really prepare the body to enter into a new state.
Yeah, great subject, great question. There's a lot to say about that. One thing I always say to people, first of all, when I introduce them to the idea of meditation and that they should train themselves, is first like put a clock, put a timer. Put a timer and say, maybe you'll do 3 minutes. Why put a timer? Because I guarantee you that I guarantee the audience, because you know that already. But if you don't set a time, your mind is going to take you out like immediately. Like it was going to be taking 30 seconds for your mind to say, you know what, is that really the best time for you to do it? Shouldn't you answer the email before? And then, I'll be, oh yeah, I get that. Oh, of course, I'll be quiet. And then you're gone. The sabotaging is huge, in the meditation field. Also, there's a big difference because people do meditation, but there's a big difference between visualization and meditation. Visualization is calming. I'm not saying it's not nice, it's not good, but it is not transformative. It is just calming. So it's good introductions to do meditation and visualization. But the meditation is to be able to be comfortable within you, to be comfortable and to observe your own presence, to completely disconnect with any identification. So I recommend where people start out basically by trying to let go of anything that they are clearly identifying themselves with, like their names, their body, the room they're sitting in, anything, the planet they're on, and as you are releasing all of these, it seems you have to do it to see that it's actually really easy to do. It's actually, people say, oh, I'm going to forget my name. No. In the moment, you can, because you're not threatening the ego. You're not telling the ego, oh, we're not inviting you anymore. You're just playing, right? And so you're playing at letting all that go away. And what you're left with is magical. It's expensive. You become all there is. And so you're God also. So it's very humbling and it's very quiet. It's like being able to tell yourself, like, yeah, there's the God in me. I am God, is not saying I'm the king. You see, like there's this, what is it? Like, please go on meditation, observe what it is to be God. It's not accumulating things and manipulating and getting the power, that you need. No, it's actually being in unobstructed connection with what sources you. So it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth it to train yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the recommendation of starting with a clock, a timer. I know that in the beginning of my practice, my mind would wander and I would go back to, how long have I been doing this? Have I done it 15 minutes? Have I been here an hour? And all of a sudden you're going down a rabbit hole of time. Where did time go? Am I in time? And so when I first started my practice in becoming very diligent and very resourced with my practice, I remember starting with Deepak Chopra's 21 Days of Meditation, and really finding that it was a great way, because it's about 12 minutes. And I would start each morning with Deepak's 21 days and 12 minutes in the morning. And, once it's over, that you have sat through your practice. And then my practice, once I call those my training wheels. And once my training wheels started to come off, I started becoming very serious about my practice, and then studied with a Himalayan teacher, and then started finding myself practicing about an hour 3 times a day. And the evening would sometimes go over an hour, and started playing with what you mentioned in terms of reactive and proactive meditation. And so proactive in terms of future visualizations, or how you want a certain circumstance or event to go. And what I've recognized is that I really needed the reactive, observing, being the observer, and observing my thinking and observing my behavior and my responses and where my ego is at, allowed me to really come from a more empowered place, a more grounded and centered place, to do proactive meditation of visualizations without reactive, taking in and reacting to what I'm seeing, which you're actually not reacting, you're just observing. But being the observer allowed me to really feel empowered and resourced in any visualization or visual meditations. And I think what I hear from a lot of people is that they tend to start with visual meditation, being proactive, and it's removing them from the beauty of stilling the mind and just receiving.
Yeah, it's a bit like the difference between dealing with a headache with I don't want to say names of product, but it's a molecule, I think. So something like ibuprofen, aspirin or something, or dealing with it with your breath, or moving your body, finding out or adjusting your structure, your neck or something, or eating or drinking, being aware of your body. So now you become your own healer. This is a big deal for me. I'm not a healer, like I'm fixing people. I'm more of a facilitator, that every session the person has instruction to what they need to know, so that they can become their own healer on this specific issues. So in meditation and visualization, when you use this, and it did calm you, it's okay, but it didn't really transform you. Why? Because it didn't really put your brain in pure awareness mode, which is what the brain surgeons are recommending. What they recommend, instead of doing 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night, which is great for people who are also trained, but people are either challenged or they're beginners, is to do every hour, to set a little alarm, and to yawn, because the yawning just relaxes the back of the brain, the vascular system just gets flow better in the brain, and that slows down the production of thoughts, and followed by 60 seconds of awareness mode. So awareness is that it's just looking at the palm of your hand, doing nothing, like just be aware. 60 seconds is feasible. So if you do this every hour, you actually train your brain better, because for the morning and night, for X amount of hours in between, the brain keep on doing what it's usually doing. So if you are doing this every hour, doing the 60 seconds of putting your brain on awareness mode, then now you are redesigning, you're reconnecting with this natural ability that you have to be in presence. about meditation also, when I learned, it was with a Yondren Bön tradition. It's the Tibetan original tradition before Buddhism came. And it's kind of like hardcore. And what the Rinpoche was instructing us to do was to first, it was to bring some light into the crown chakra and cleaning up the defilement, the karmic defilement of your thinking, then the karmic defilement of your speech, the hard words, the lies, then the heart. You clean that up, fill yourself with light, go down to the roots, anchor yourself into the ground, and then you go into meditation. And then you stare at a sky without a cloud or a sea without a ripple. And you stare at that for as long as you can. And should thoughts start to fly by, you don't investigate them because you can't really stop them, but you don't investigate them. So it's like just letting pass by and refocus on something, because a sky without a cloud is not much to see. So it's really close to nothing, right? And that is, that is a beautiful meditation. That's how I learn in a most structured Buddhist way. And eventually you do this every day, and then eventually you also do once a month, like from 5 in the morning to 5 at night, and you just do your prayer, your meditation. And it's a day almost like of energetic purging. So it's constraining, it's difficult, but you come out of there, like you've just unload so much. So the practice, there's a bond, a tradition. It's like the equivalent of American Native Indians, very shamanic, and it's a Bon tradition, Bon. And my specific one was Yondren Bön. So it was taught by a lineage. It is taught by a lineage, Rinpoche from Tibet, who the only monastery that exists is outside of Tibet in Sikkim. But they've been genocide. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the very, very, very traditional,
Yeah.
very ancestral, very old ways of practicing this.
Yeah. So, with your background in psephology or as a psephologist, I was wondering if you could share some techniques or just some little hacks for people to support themselves in their own self-hypnosis, or just even exploring or playing with the concept.
Okay, so self-hypnosis kind of work hand in hand with meditation, because you do have to, just pull yourself in another space. You start to guide yourself through laying down, but you guide yourself through imagining, for instance, that you are a cork on the sea. And then you kind of like slowly, very slowly, imagine that you are just floating on the surface of the sea. And there's very little movement, very, very little movement. And this puts you already in a state of like it's rocking you. It feels very safe. You feel very supported. You're in the water element, which is the element of emotions, but the water is very calm. And from when you really feel like you have set yourself in this, as calm as you can, then you start to imagine that you see a staircase, a very beautiful staircase. You imagine it the way you want it, and you have a bird, and you follow this bird that is flying on the staircase, and you go up, you go one level up. And then you go and dig to the next level, and you keep on going like up to the third level. And there you can do two things. Either you just take one things that you desire to resolve, or you would like to fit it with your energy. So maybe it's a project, maybe it's something that you're waiting for and you don't know how it's going to unfold. So you actually go in this place where you go high, you really calm, and then you can actually now says, you allow yourself to think, to bring it into your mind, and you're seeing the most beautiful result that you can possibly allow. And maybe for some people, this is when they're going to have actually some serious intuition. They're going to have flash. They're going to, don't doubt it. Don't doubt it. And often the reflex will be, yeah, but that would be too good. I can't believe in it. And trust again. So if a thought came to you, do not argue with it. Do not be in a conflict with it. Do not dismiss it, because it's a gift. You just received a gift from the source. So the other thing that you can do is you do the same thing, the floating, going up the stairs, but then you are going to see a door, and the door is going to look the way you need it to be. And when you're ready, you stand in front of the door, and when you're ready, you open the door, and then you get into a space. And you'll be surprised that your imagination has already created it. It's waiting for you. And then you're looking around the space, and it's your sacred space. And inside that space, now you're looking for a person, a guide that is waiting for you. And when you meet this guide, you sit or dance or fly, whatever, and you have a conversation. And then you ask the questions that you need answer for. And again, this is a way for people to get used to understand how intuitive they are. And this, maybe it's one question and one answer. That's enough. Don't need to be too greedy. Because we know we can come back at any time. And sometimes it's like, this is the question and the answer for today or for this week. And then let it integrate, work with it. And the beauty is that this space, once you find it, it almost feels like you're so familiar with it. It's almost like all the timelines are put into one, and then it's maybe made a mosaic of different things that you're familiar with because you've had it, and it's been part of your existence in other past lives or in other dimensions. So that's one thing that I recommend for people. You're bypassing everything that you say you know about life. By the way, for people who are interested, highly, highly recommend. One of the most beautiful books is Freedom from the Known from Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti is a man who's been chosen at a young age. He was like a mid-teenager, and he was taken by the Theosophical Society to be the new leader. And for years, he studied. And then when it was time, I think it was like something like 21 or 22, 23, I'm not sure. There was this introduction, and he had this beautiful speech that can be found online, only the audio. And he says, this is to introduce me as the leader, the new leader of the Theosophical Society, the order of the Theosophical Society. And my first action as the leader is to dissolve the order. And he explains why. He says, because I want to help people free themselves from all conditioning. So there's no dogma, there's no teachers, that can actually offer that. So he says, I will help people to continue to help people liberate themselves. But he never did it in the form of, I tell you what to do. He always did it in the form of, I'll question what you think,
Yeah, he's one of the most brilliant minds in my opinion, and I love how he unravels and digests and practices curiosity around a concept. And so I love that instead of telling you what he thinks, he'll say, okay, well, let's break this down together. Let's talk about this together. Let's look at the root, which is his favorite. Like, let's go to the root. He's just such an incredible mind, I think, that can really support an individual in creating an habitual practice of questioning and compassionate self-inquiry and examination. And for anyone who's not familiar with Krishnamurti, there's quite a bit of recorded information or recorded videos or talks on YouTube. And, you know, the way he speaks with a great deal of intention and contemplation and is very slow and controlled. I think that's something to keep in mind, and please don't push it away or reject it, because he's not moving at a fast pace that we've all become accustomed to with these sound bites all over Instagram and these everything being thrown at you in a very quick, fast-paced way. I think if you spend enough time with him and with his work, it can really help shift one's perspective and even shift one's way of approaching curiosity and approaching examination. And just can't say enough about him. I love that you brought him up.
And I don't know if you've noticed, but after a certain age, he talks, he never says I, he says the speaker. And he says, no, so natural. Yeah, he says, you'll notice, he says, the speaker says, da, 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 da. And that's, I think it's like, I don't think it doesn't feel like a gimmick. It feels like, at one point it became so natural for him. His ego has been so blasted off that he's clear that he's just a channeler. And the same way when I'm working with people, I always say, I don't say I saw this, or I think you should do this. It's always like they say. The funny thing is that I say they say, and for the longest time I was like, why? Who are they? What are they? Why am I saying they? I'm like, yes, there are some guides that come and I call them for sure, but it feels like it's the voice is always a they. And lately, I think I was sitting with a plant medicine, the hape, and it was quite strong that day. And it like really blasted me off. I was instantly surrounded by this white cloud. I worked a lot with the seraphims, and which are a realm of angelic realm. They're the highest angelic realm. And what I was getting as a message, it was in this absolute center, because this medicine is really putting you into center and stillness and safety. And it said, you are us. They didn't say you are a seraphim. They didn't say you are one of us. They say you are us. And they say, by the way, everybody is. And that feeling of that moment of like, we really are a dot connected. We're gonna, it's become weird to me to, even when I'm really seriously, deeply connected, it's like I almost starting to feel like I'm not really an individual. I'm a collective. You're a collective. My ego is an individual. But so yeah, look and you see. I like when he says that. The speaker says.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah, I'll go back and take a deeper look at that. You know, something I want to explore with you, you know, and I think it's a great way to bring this beautiful conversation to a close, is the power of prayer, or the art of prayer, I believe is how you refer to it. And prayer for me is much, you know, unfortunately, you know, through religion, I think religion has bastardized the word, and unfortunately has put a bad word, or not a bad word, but
a lot of
created,
stigma.
yeah, a lot of what I like to remind my clients when I'm working with them is prayer existed long before Christianity. And what I like to invite many of my clients into understanding is the power of prayer, of of putting intentional energy out into the universe, of asking, of surrendering, and even prayer within community. When you have a group of people who are all praying over someone or for something, the amount of energy that comes together. And when we look at quantum physics, this isn't wooism. There is a lot of substantial science to support the concept of prayer. And I'm really curious about your experience with it and how you're using it and how you teach it and, how you gift it to your clients.
Well, thanks for the question. Yeah, it's really important to being able to free ourselves from, even I feel sometimes uncomfortable using some words that are being used too much into the religious context. But sometimes I do circles here, and I do toning circles where would be like gratitude ceremony, where you call the names of the angels, the teachers, the gods. Everybody has been called in, and then this is the day for us to thank them, not just to ask for something, but to thank them for what we've received. When you and what you offer is a sound, a vibration. So you create a sound, and as a group, you have this sound, you have this vibration, and you could see. I mean, people who are not really necessarily very intuitive, they feel it. It's like the togetherness, just the vibration with the intention of being in gratitude. I see it myself as like a ball of light. It's almost like a little planet that gets formed in the center of the circle, and it's 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 beautiful to see how effective it is. And this is why it's essential for people to be able to get together. And adding, I mean, it's the same thing as a physical strength. You are 5 people to push something, it's going to be more powerful. It is exactly the same thing with our psychic powers, with our energy, the energetic power also. So first, also, why is the prayer? This is a prayer pose, but you could be like that. It's because this is the extension of the heart. So you're creating really. You're trying to really charge yourself and charge your heart and keep this energy. And now you are the one who call the shots, like where is it directed? And the centering into the heart, there's the physical heart. It's a little eccentric, but the energetic heart is right at the center of our being. And when you get to focus in that energetic center, again, shutting off your ego mind, shutting off your reasoning and anything else that burdens you. This is like going into your personal inner cave of light. And what I've been doing is one day maybe we could talk about a couple of symbols that I was had channeled, and one of them has to do with a heart. And there's a tiny dot at the center of this cross, and it looks like a flower basically, with 4 spaces. And these are the 4 chambers of the heart. And at the very center, there's a tiny point. I use this in my prayer meditation, where I would try to focus on my heart and look for a tiny little dot of light, and trying to zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. As you zoom in, the more focus you put into it, at one point, it's like you touching it and puff, you pass a membrane and you're emerging light. You don't need to die for that. You can do it this way, through the presence of your own heart in the prayer mode. And I asked a friend of mine who's a surgeon, says, is there actually in the physical heart a spot that's very center and very small, where like suppose I die and you're going to resuscitate me, that would be where life will come back through. And he said, yeah, it's called, I think if I'm not mistaken, it's this SA node. And it's where the electricity comes in. So without electricity, you and I don't exist anymore in that form. So being able to take care of that vacuole, of those energetic center, of those crucial, very small, yet crucial parts of our being, I think this is what for me is in the prayer. Pay attention. And like in quantum physics, the more you observe something, the more it exists. So people, for me, the ultimate prayer is to be able to really be only present to what is at the center of your heart, which is the light. And that light, as you're looking at it, pay attention to it and invite it, it just can blast. And that's when you're starting to be a magician. And you use that light and you say, please, I would like that light to go and being of service to this or service to that. And you have an experiment that's been done by Dr. I think this is Lynn McTaggart, who's a scientist, journalist, and also Dr. Lipton, and they did something. I think she wrote a book called The Field, and there's this something experiment, the present, no, not the presence experiment, the something experiment, and that's what they did. They took people, a group of people. They took a sick person with a tumor, and they gave this group of people the opportunity to actually focus and just pray and say this, I'm seeing this shrinking, and it worked. It worked. So prayer and meditation are very, very tied up together. So if you learn to be in meditative state, then you can move on to the prayer. Prayer would be to really express the most beautiful concept that you can possibly come up with.
Absolutely. That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. I love prayer. I love meditation. I love the intentions behind it all and expressing the energy through intentions and mindset. It is just very incredible and powerful work. And I have so much gratitude that we got to touch on that subject today. So
yeah, thank you. Me too. Yeah. Me too. It's very dear to my heart.
Well, I want to open the door. Is there anything else that you would like to circle back to that you didn't feel that you got to deeply paid in or deeply discuss, or, you know, are you feeling complete?
I could speak. We could do this for 3 weeks straight, you know?
We could. Don't you tempt me.
So don't ask me that. Me or guarantee you, there's always going to be something that we can talk about, for sure. But I think this is pretty deep already and very rich. So I think we can meet again. It'd be my absolute pleasure. But I think for today we covered quite a lot already.
Nice. Well, it would be my pleasure too. And I'm looking forward to circling back and continuing our conversations and seeing what comes up that we can share with the users.
Maybe there's something that we can put like a tiny little preview of maybe a conversation we can have later, but I'm suggesting, and I'm throwing it there, that it would be lovely for everyone to meditate on judgment and criticism.
Absolutely.
This is what hurt us so much.
Absolutely.
It separates us. It gives us anxiety.
Yeah.
It shrinks our soul.
Yes.
And I'm not talking just about self-criticism.
Yeah.
I'm talking about that tiny little criticism we throw all the time. My shoes are too old. You know, the sun, the wind is too cold. It's always, it feels to me sometimes that we're all babies that are complaining about everything all the time, but we don't know that we're doing it.
Yeah.
And so it's a great exercise to monitor how we're using opinions and criticism. So Virgos, friends, that's tough for you. You're probably not going to like that. But yes, I will just send that like that.
That's absolutely beautiful. I think that's an amazing invitation. And for the viewers, that's a beautiful challenge and invite to change the language that you use and to become conscious and aware and observe the language that you're using. Am I criticizing without realizing that I'm intentionally criticizing? And there's a really great book, I forget the author's name, but it's How to Communicate Like a Buddhist. And it talks and touches on this particular topic of criticism. You know, only speak that which is true, and ask yourself, what I'm about to say, does it help? Does it contribute to anything? If it does not help or contribute in any way, there's no need to say it. Just because it's a thought, just because it's a feeling or an idea doesn't mean that it needs to be discussed or needs to be put out there in the world. And you are responsible for the language that you use. You're responsible for the ideas and the energy that you put out in verbal form. That you're accountable. You are responsible.
And it's people who are in a relationship. That's a really useful one. So it's a beautiful ground to practice that. Being able to catch yourself and to hear it when it's coming to you, and instead of criticizing back, like, criticizing the fact that somebody is actually criticizing, but actually like an adult, like a real, let's take responsibility for everything. It's like, the way you just like said that, that's how it lands, and so what's your intention behind that? Is there another, a point that you can make?
Absolutely.
And just being able to just like really brush up all the wrinkles that are just like causing, bigger waves along the line in a relationship.
Yeah, and what a powerful way to hold someone accountable for the language that they're using or the many criticisms that they're throwing out there, is just to ask them, what's the intention behind sharing that? Like, what's your intention here? And
the great effort for the person who says that is to make sure that you don't catch yourself before you're going to react to that.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
if you react to that, it means you're accepting it.
Yeah.
So the ball, it's not dodging, it's just stopping the ball in full flight and say, well, this is not going to reach me.
Yeah.
But not as in a very like, it almost should be like scientific, almost technical. So get the emotions out.
Yeah.
Logically, what's happening? What's the dynamic here?
Absolutely. I think that is such a beautiful suggestion and challenge to put out there. And I appreciate it. I really appreciate this time with you and getting to learn you and know you more. And I have a lot of gratitude for just having this experience. And again, very appreciative of the little hacks and tidbits that you've shared with the viewers. I think that, in this world of information, there's a lot of information out there, but some of the information in terms of like self-growth and healing and doing the work and so on is not being conveyed in ways that really are truly of service and can allow us to absorb it, embody it, and actually practice it. So I got such deep appreciation.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that is also the beautiful point about the shift method. My method is that create your personal healing mantra that you need at this precise moment for that precise plane that you have. Not something that, well, that teacher, that writer suggests this and this, and then you apply to it as it's like a remedy, like a universal remedy, but you're not exactly in line. In this case, you there's a part of you that knows exactly what you need. Go and look for it.
Absolutely. Alexandra, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Oh, the pleasure was mine. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye. Have a great day.